And actually, it's interesting when you're talking about the animal fighting being hidden and people not really knowing. I think that's where the HSUS animal fighting investigation training is important, because even law enforcement sometimes, they might be on a call and they don't really know that materials that they're looking at. They might find some bloody rug scraps and they might not know what those are. So our animal fighting investigation training, which again is geared towards law enforcement, is phenomenal because it shows law enforcement, here's some stuff you might be looking for. Yeah, you might be on a drug raid, but if you see these types of paraphernalia, this is animal fighting paraphernalia, and
there might be something more to what they're investigating.
Right, and here's how to build a strong case and collect things.
Right.
And
you said it yourself, it's not just the animal fighting. A lot of times it's drugs and it's gambling and it's firearms and it's, those are all go along with it. So.
Well, I know that some of our staff that went to humane officer training, didn't they also receive that? Something where you can go in and, if you do a house
you know what to
visit,
look for.
You know what you're looking for, like treadmills in the basement or hanging, whatever things that they use to train the dogs to be aggressive.
And it's nice that there is a national organization that's out there and that is giving out all the same information instead of hodgepodge where, we're getting a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit there. The fact that people are being certified for this is really important.
So all the information across the board is uniform. You're not applying one set of rules to Wisconsin, another set of rules to California or Oregon. It's the same across the board for all the states.
Right. Yeah, and I think it says a lot that these, like the big state agencies, like the Department of Justice here, that they're sending their criminal investigators to take this seriously and to do investigations.
We have certainly seen a trend over the years that, because you're right, a lot of this was just unknown, and finally it is being taken seriously by law enforcement and from judicial standpoint and all those other places as well.
And some of your community members, it's like, well, it's not happening here. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen here. And yes, it does, or yes, it can. And so you have to be open that, don't turn your back and close your eyes to it. You need to, be aware that, wow, that really could be going on. Maybe I should call somebody and report this.
I just have a personal question for you. How did you get involved in this? I mean, what prompted you to be part of this?
Sure. Well, I guess probably like a lot of people, including you. I'm guessing as kids, you thought I want to help animals, and so yeah, I think I just I used to volunteer. I did wildlife rescue and rehabilitation during graduate school when I was in Texas, and I helped feed the baby birds and helped rehabilitate them and release them. So I think it just kind of evolved from that, and just seeing, okay, on a bigger scale, what else could I be doing? So.
Yeah, because your work is tough too.
Now, the position that you hold with Humane Society of the United States for people out there that are thinking, well, gee, I'd like a job like that.
Sure.
Did you have to have a certain level of education, training to do what you do?
Yeah, all of the state directors have really varied backgrounds, very interesting educational backgrounds and work experience backgrounds. I mean, certainly some animal experience is helpful, and but large transferable skills too. So we do a lot of when we work at the state legislature, for example, being able to work on bills and understand that process. So people who are involved and active citizens on animal issues, I think, makes a big difference. And in fact, that's one thing a lot of people call me regularly about. They say, how can I get involved? How can I want to be at the state legislature and lobby for animals, but I'm not an official lobbyist. I'm just a constituent in my district. Do they really want to hear from me? And so that's, I think if somebody had a background like that and said, hey, I was involved in democracy, I talked to my legislators, and I spoke up for animals wherever I could, and I think that would definitely be.
Well, and I think I think that's key that you're talking about that, and I think we should talk about that because things won't change until the laws do. As much as we want to see things happen and we want to end cruelty and we want to get standards up for animal care, it's not going to happen until it becomes law. And so talk a little bit about that. Talk about what you do at that level. What some of the things that are happening in Wisconsin or have happened.
Sure. Well, last legislative session, I worked on a bill that would address the issue of antifreeze poisoning in pets. And this is something that happens accidentally and sadly intentionally. Sometimes pets are poisoned with antifreeze. There's been some high-profile cases here. People soaking milk bones and in antifreeze and feeding it to a disgruntled neighbor's dog, or wildlife getting into spilled antifreeze from an ATV vehicle in a state park. But most likely, it normally has a very sweet flavor, and so animals are attracted to this liquid that might be stored improperly in a garage or leaking from a car. And so there's really sad cases and very preventable deaths with these accidental poisoning. So we worked on a bill that required a bittering agent to be added to antifreeze. And I was really excited. In May, we were able to attend a governor's bill signing ceremony, and Wisconsin became the 12th state in the country to address the antifreeze pet poisoning
That's pretty awesome, because I know that, like you said, people don't intentionally, you have to have antifreeze in your vehicles, and you're not intentionally dripping it onto the garage floor, but your pet can unknowingly get, and it doesn't take a very large amount to cause sickness and death.
Sadly, yeah.
So having that is really beneficial.
Yeah.
So when does that take effect?
That will take effect next year. So yeah, we're really thrilled, and it sounds like there was actually an Oshkosh case.
Well, yeah, we helped out a little bit on that in the sense that we were aware of a case of a gentleman who actually adopted a dog from us, and when he came in that day, it was very sad, because he came in and he specifically said, you may not want to adopt me, because he said I had to shoot my own dog. And of course, when you hear something like that, you're like, whoa, what? Wow, maybe not. But as it turned out, that's exactly what happened to him. Is his dog, accidentally licked up antifreeze, and it was on a weekend, and it was, and he was unable to reach any veterinarian clinic and so on and so forth, and his dog was dying right before his eyes, and so he made that decision
and suffering.
Because it is a very painful death, and made the decision to shoot his own dog, which had to be incredibly hard. I mean, but bless his heart. I mean, that I don't know, from anybody's standpoint, how difficult that must be. So that's the decision he made, and then ultimately he ended up adopting from us. But I don't want to get emotional about it. but
it's hard not to.
It is,
because
it's
a sad situation.
It is a sad situation,
now,
and totally preventable.
Right.
Totally
preventable.
And
we sadly, that was not an uncommon story. We were hearing from emergency veterinarians that even some toxicology professors at the veterinary school at University of Wisconsin said they teach how to deal with antifreeze poisoning, because it can be common, and so preventing these deaths is going to be fantastic in the future.
It is fantastic.
Especially with the seasons changing.
Yeah.
Here in Wisconsin,
Yeah.
we have winter,
Right.
so we have a lot of antifreeze. So what else is happening in legislation to help the animals?
Yeah, well, next legislative session, that's what a lot of people are contacting me now about, how can we help next session? What we'd really love to see next session is a bill that would address allow judges to include pets in restraining orders in domestic violence cases.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think there are maybe 15 states right now that these are called pet protective orders, these types of laws, and I think there's about 15 states that do that, so it would be phenomenal to see Wisconsin on the list of states addressing this very serious problem. And it sounds like domestic violence groups obviously care about it, humane groups care about it, so I think that'd be a fantastic animal protection bill for next session.
So how do people get involved with this and say, I want this to be passed, I think this is great, how do I become helpful in that?
Well, one thing I think is very timely is that this is an election year, and so one thing that people can do without even having to drive down to Madison is they can go to a district office of where their legislators might be holding different events, campaigning for re-election or maybe a new candidate that's up there, and they could simply attend these events or go to some town hall meetings or in-district meetings with their legislators, and let them know that they care about animal protection. Let them know that they want to see some animal protection bills next session. Ask them how they might vote on these things. They could look up their legislators' voting history. They could thank them for supporting perhaps the puppy mill bill, the antifreeze bill. If they didn't vote a certain way, they could politely ask them, why they didn't vote that way, and let them know as a constituent that they care about that, and they're going to be watching how they vote, and certainly talking to their friends and neighbors about animal protection issues, and looking forward to seeing that in the state legislature again.
Now, I know that I've gotten some emails sent to me about, vote, contact your legislation regarding puppy mills or whatever, and they give you a criteria right online. Do you know, maybe you don't, if that's valid to do it that way, to contact your legislature, through these, you know, it's kind of like a group email.
Oh, I see. So kind of a template email?
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, certainly the best thing to do is to make it individual, personalize it. So,
okay.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting, though. Legislators report back that their offices, if, say, they get maybe 10 calls or 10 emails on a certain topic, they really count that as representing a huge group of a huge number of their constituents. So I think it's absolutely, it's still effective. I mean, the most effective thing would be an in-person meeting. Second most effective might be an actual phone call to their
I know
office.
I've done that. I've done a phone call and I've gotten a response, and I was pretty shocked that I actually got a phone call back.
Right, and how shocking to get a handwritten letter nowadays, or an actual letter in the mail.
Right.
But email, personalized email, or even one of these email templates that are showing, you know, yes, it might be somebody tallying another number coming in that it's the same thing, but those numbers add up, and that's still going to, if somebody says, wow, we got X number of calls on the antifreeze bill or the puppy mill bill or pet protective orders, that's going to send a message to the legislator that it's an important issue.
Wow. Now, just real quickly, because we have to wrap up.
We're running out of time.
But Allison, question for you. So can they contact HSUS just to see what's happening in Wisconsin from a legislation perspective, or is that something that, you know, they should go to a website, or? Sure,
yeah. So our website is humanesociety.org. It's chock full of fantastic information, how people can get involved, yeah. And on a sidebar it says about us, and then in your state, and there's a nice U.S. map, and people can click on Wisconsin, and it goes through all of the legislation that we have a position on in the state legislature. And it also has other current events going on. Facebook, I know, is a big craze right now. We have an active presence on Facebook. People can do a search for the Humane Society of the United States Wisconsin group. They could sign up to, and that's another way. And of course, my contact information, it sounds like that's going to be displayed. Anyone can contact me directly anytime with, you know, any concerns that they have, any questions about any animal issues going on
Tremendous resource,
here.
tremendous.
Wonderful. Well, we just can't thank you enough for taking time to come and be on our show today.
We could do this for an hour, actually.
Well, we really could, and I'm sure there's our viewers, you know, probably still have questions, and you know, you may get, you know, an onslaught of emails.
That'd be great.
You know, with questions regarding what the Humane Society of the United States does in their community to help animals. So again, thank you so much. Thank you for the work that you do for all the shelters, for all the animals across the nation.
Well, thanks for your amazing work.
So I hope that our viewers today have enjoyed our show in meeting with Allison. And so until next time, happy tales to you.